Part 1. Introduction: The confusing silence. Have you ever been in this situation? You're talking to a woman, maybe at work, maybe in your friend group, and everything about the way she looks at you, the way she laughs at your jokes, even the way she lingers in conversation, it all feels like she likes you. But then, nothing happens. She doesn't text first. She avoids deeper conversations. And when you finally gather the courage to ask yourself, "Am I just imagining this?" you feel more confused than ever. Let's get one thing clear. If you've been in this position, you're not crazy, and you're not alone. This kind of silence, what I call the confusing silence, happens all the time. And the truth is, it's not because she's playing games or stringing you along. In many cases, she does like you, but something deeper is holding her back. And today, we're going to break that down. Magnifying glass why she doesn't say anything, even if she likes you. Before you start doubting yourself, consider this: social conditioning from a young age. Many women are taught, directly or indirectly, that making the first move is unladylike or too forward. So even if she wants to say something, she's waiting, hoping you will take the lead. Fear of rejection. Rejection hurts everyone. But for some women, the risk of emotional embarrassment is high enough to choose silence over vulnerability. Protecting the fantasy. Saying something means risking the unknown. Staying silent allows her to preserve the what if, that sweet spot of hope. Untouched by reality. Bullseye what you should take away. So what does this mean for you? It means that silence doesn't always equal disinterest. It often means there's a battle going on between what she feels, what she fears, and what she's been taught to suppress. Understanding this dynamic can help you respond with clarity instead of frustration. And in the next part of this video, we'll explore exactly how you can approach that silence, not with pressure, but with presence. Part 2. Psychological and social reasons why she stays silent. Have you ever wondered why someone who seems genuinely interested in you never actually says anything? You sense a connection. The eye contact lingers. The conversations feel natural. And there's that subtle spark in the air. But then, nothing. No confession. No clarity. Just silence. This silence can be confusing, even frustrating. But to truly understand it, we need to step back and look deeper at the psychology and social conditioning that shapes a woman's behavior in these moments. Magnifying glass 1. Fear of rejection and ego protection. Rejection is universal, but not equally trained for. Like men, women experience the fear of rejection, but unlike many men, they aren't typically encouraged to face it directly. Most are not socially trained to pursue or initiate. That makes any act of vulnerability, like expressing feelings, a much bigger emotional risk. It feels like losing power. Saying, "I like you," puts her in a position where she could be turned down. And for someone who's internalized that being wanted is more acceptable than wanting, that can feel like a loss of control or dignity. Reading signals is a safety check. If she's already been giving you subtle signs, lingering glances, playful teasing, thoughtful attention, and you haven't responded clearly, she might interpret that as rejection. So why risk making it explicit? High social stakes in close relationships. If you're a colleague, a classmate, or a friend, the stakes are even higher. Speaking up could change the entire dynamic. If the feeling isn't mutual, It could bring tension or awkwardness to spaces she can't easily walk away from. Bullseye: the key takeaway. Her silence is not a sign of weakness. It's often a sign of calculation, self-protection, and emotional caution. So the next time you wonder why she hasn't said anything, remember, this isn't about disinterest, it's about emotional risk. And understanding that risk gives you the chance to create a space where vulnerability feels safe. In the next section, we'll explore the second reason behind her silence, how social roles and cultural conditioning shape what she believes is acceptable behavior. 2. Social conditioning, waiting to be chosen. Have you ever felt like a woman is holding back, even when there's clearly mutual interest? She smiles at your jokes, remembers the little things you say, and there's a connection you can't quite put into words. Yet, she never takes the next step. She never says it first. Why? It may not be about you, or even about her personal fears. It could be something much bigger, a social script she was taught to follow since childhood. Let's talk about one of the most powerful and overlooked forces that keeps her silent: social conditioning. Pushed in the script of waiting to be chosen. From an early age, many women are subtly, and sometimes explicitly, taught the same message. Don't chase, be chosen. Cultural expectations start early, in stories, movies, and even family dynamics. Girls often see themselves cast in the role of the one being pursued. The prince finds Cinderella, the boy makes the first move, the woman waits. This messaging creates a belief that initiating interest makes a woman seem too eager or unladylike. Pop culture reinforces the narrative. Think about romantic comedies or dating shows. When a woman expresses too much interest, she's often labeled desperate or thirsty. Meanwhile, men are praised for persistence. This double standard teaches her that her value lies in being pursued, not in owning her desires. The desire to feel chosen and desirable. There's a deep psychological reward in feeling wanted, not just emotionally, but socially. Being pursued affirms that she is attractive, valuable, and worthy. If she initiates, she risks losing that validation. And worse, she risks being seen as trying too hard. Fear of social judgment. In many cultures, especially those with traditional gender expectations, a woman who makes the first move may be labeled as too forward, easy, or uncontrolled. These labels can follow her, even when her intentions are genuine. That's a heavy price to pay for honesty. Magnifying glass: the real-world impact. So what does this mean for you? If you're waiting for her to say something, you might be waiting forever, not because she doesn't feel anything, but because she's been taught that saying something makes her look less. And in a society that often punishes women for showing interest first, silence becomes a survival strategy. Compass: final reflection. This isn't about blaming society or excusing poor communication. It's about awareness. The more we understand the forces behind someone's silence, the more compassion and clarity we bring into our relationships. So, instead of asking, "Why won't she just tell me?" a more powerful question might be, have I created the safety and clarity that gives her permission to speak? In the next segment, we'll dive into how to interpret subtle signs of interest, so you don't miss what's being said, even in silence. Let me know if you'd like to continue with reading nonverbal signals accurately. 3. Overthinking every possible outcome. Let's pause and consider a familiar scenario. You're talking to someone, you share laughs, meaningful glances, inside jokes. There's a rhythm between you two that feels different, maybe even electric. But then, nothing happens. She doesn't say anything. No confession. No direct signals. Just silence. You begin to wonder, did I imagine all this? Is she unsure? Or just not interested? But here's something most people don't realize. It's often not a lack of interest, it's mental overload. Let's unpack what that really means. Pushpin 1. The mental spiral. Why overthinking stops her. For many women, expressing interest isn't a simple decision. It's a mental maze with no clear exit. Questioning intentions. She might ask herself, what if he's just being nice? What if I'm misreading the signs? What if I embarrass myself and ruin everything? These aren't just fleeting thoughts. They replay over and over, forming a cycle of doubt, fear of social consequences. If you're in the same friend group, workplace, or community, she knows there's more at stake than just rejection. One misstep, and the entire dynamic could shift. Friendships may become awkward. Social tension could rise. In her mind, the price of a misread moment is too high. Emotional self-protection. Vulnerability feels risky. And if she already values your presence, even platonically, she may fear losing that more than she desires something more. So she waits, silently. Analysis paralysis. The more she overthinks, the more action feels impossible. Every option is mentally played out, and none feels safe. The result? She does nothing, not because she doesn't care, but because she cares too much to get it wrong. Pushpin 2. Real-life reflection. You might not see the storm. Overthinking is invisible from the outside. From your perspective, it might just look like indifference or a lack of effort. But in her inner world, she's probably weighing every glance, every text, every joke, and wondering what it really means. That emotional labor is exhausting, and it often ends with silence. Not because she doesn't want to speak, but because she no longer trusts that she's reading the situation correctly. Compass conclusion. Understanding before assuming. So if she seems interested but never says a word, pause before assuming she's uninterested. There's a high chance she's trapped in her head, overthinking every possible outcome. Terrified of ruining something important. The challenge isn't just about getting her to speak, it's about creating emotional safety. A space where clarity replaces confusion. Where honesty feels safe, not risky. And where interest doesn't feel like a gamble, it feels like a shared truth. In the next part of this series, we'll explore how subtle cues, nonverbal, behavioral, emotional, can speak even louder than words. 4. Fear of appearing desperate or too available. Let me ask you something. Have you ever wondered why someone who clearly seems to like you laughs at your jokes, makes eye contact, finds reasons to stay close, never actually says anything? You might think, maybe she's not that interested. But what if I told you? She's holding back, not because she doesn't feel something, but because she's afraid of seeming too available. That fear isn't about you. It's deeply rooted in culture, identity, and how women have been conditioned to protect their perceived value in a relationship. Pushpin cultural narratives. Value through distance. Across media, upbringing, and social norms, women have been taught one subtle but powerful message. Don't show too much. Let them chase. This belief reinforces a centuries-old dynamic. A woman who expresses interest too openly risks being labeled desperate or easy. A woman who's mysterious, hard to read, or emotionally reserved is seen as high value. So even if she wants to tell you how she feels, that desire collides with an inner voice warning her, hold back, or you'll lose his interest. Pushpin the emotional dilemma. Wanting love versus protecting status. This creates a painful internal conflict. On one side, there's a genuine desire to connect, to be seen, heard, and valued emotionally. On the other, there's a fear of judgment, that being too expressive will reduce her worth in your eyes. She might ask herself, if I text first, will I look too eager? If I tell him I like him, will he pull away? Shouldn't he make the first move if he's truly interested? This overcautiousness can make her appear cold or indifferent, when in reality, she's just caught between two opposing forces. Pushpin what this means for you. Understanding this fear helps you reframe silence. It's not always rejection. It may be restraint rooted in survival logic. It's not always lack of emotion. It may be a calculated pause to protect dignity. And it's not a game. It's often an invisible balancing act between vulnerability and self-worth. As a man, you may have been conditioned to interpret enthusiasm as a green light and hesitation as a red one. But when it comes to women navigating emotional expression, the signals aren't always linear. Compass conclusion. Creating a safe space to be seen. If you're trying to read between the lines, don't just look for grand gestures, look for consistency, presence, and small signs of care. Sometimes, the greatest gift you can offer isn't pressure, but emotional safety. A space where she doesn't have to calculate every move. Where being open doesn't cost her respect. Where vulnerability isn't punished, it's welcomed. Because in a world that teaches people to hide their feelings, choosing to create space for honesty might be the most attractive thing you can do. 5. Waiting for the perfect moment or sign. Have you ever felt like something unspoken was happening between you and someone else? Like there's an invisible spark, but nothing ever moves forward? You think, why doesn't she say something? Well, here's one answer most people don't consider. She's waiting for the perfect moment. A moment that feels undeniably right. But the truth is, that moment rarely arrives. Let's break down why this mindset holds so many women back, and why understanding it might completely shift the way you interpret silence. Pushpin the myth of the perfect timing. Many women, consciously or not, are taught to believe that love should unfold organically. Almost like a scene from a movie. The lighting is just right. You say something poetic without realizing it. She feels safe, certain, and completely seen. This idea builds an internal expectation. I'll tell him how I feel when the time is right. But in real life, the right time often feels messy, unclear, or inconvenient. And when she doesn't see clear romantic signals from you, she interprets the silence as a sign to keep waiting. Pushpin emotional risk and the need for safety. Here's where psychology comes in. Women, like men, experience vulnerability when expressing romantic interest. But due to cultural messaging and past experiences, they often feel a greater need for emotional certainty before acting. So they wait for signs like a comment that hints you're emotionally available, a compliment that crosses into romantic territory, a gesture that feels intentional, not just friendly. Until she gets a green light, she may interpret neutrality as risk. And because she doesn't want to misread you, she chooses silence over misstep. Pushpin the standoff. When both wait and no one moves. This leads to a common but hidden dilemma. She's waiting for you to give a sign. You're waiting for her to say something first. The result? Nothing happens. Not because there's no interest, but because both people are waiting to feel safe before taking action. This isn't just frustrating, it's also deeply human. Our brains are wired to avoid rejection and loss. Without clear cues, even genuine feelings get buried under hesitation. Compass conclusion. Don't wait for perfect, look for real. If you've ever been in this kind of emotional limbo, the solution might not be a grand confession, but something far simpler. Clarity, presence, intentionality. Sometimes, what breaks the deadlock is not a dramatic gesture, but a single sentence like, "Hey, I've really enjoyed spending time with you lately. Just wondering if you felt something." 2. You don't have to overthink it. You just have to make it real. Because perfect moments are rare, but honest ones? Those can happen anytime. 6. Protecting the fantasy. Opening. Why she keeps it in her head, not her heart. Have you ever sensed that someone might feel something for you, but they never say it out loud? No texts that cross the line. No clear confessions, just subtle energy. Lingering looks, or occasional warmth. Why do some women keep their feelings private, even when they clearly care? One answer lies in something surprisingly powerful. She's protecting the fantasy. Let's explore how and why this happens, and why the idea of love sometimes feels safer than love itself. Pushpin the comfort of the unspoken. When emotions remain unexpressed, they stay in a space that feels safe, unchallenged by reality. In her mind, she can imagine how you might respond, what could happen if you were together, a version of you that fits her emotional needs. But here's the key: once feelings are spoken, they enter the real world, where anything can happen, and that brings risk. Risk of rejection, risk of disappointment, risk of discovering that the story in her mind doesn't match who you are in real life. Pushpin the illusion of control and hope. Keeping her emotions internal allows her to maintain a sense of emotional control. She can choose when to daydream. She can replay moments and assign meaning. She can hold on to the hope without facing the unknown. In psychology, this is a common protective mechanism. We often idealize others, not because they're perfect, but because we haven't risked getting close enough to see their flaws. And when we idealize, we stay in control of the narrative. Pushpin why reality feels threatening. The moment she expresses how she feels, everything changes. Even if you like her back, the dynamic shifts. There are expectations now. There's vulnerability. There's the possibility that you won't feel the same way. Or worse, that you'll respond ambiguously, leaving her stuck between hope and confusion. So, instead of stepping forward, she tells herself, "It's better this way. At least I won't get hurt." And in doing so, she chooses the comfort of fantasy over the unpredictability of truth. Compass conclusion. When fantasy becomes a cage, there's nothing wrong with dreaming. In fact, fantasy can be healing, but when it becomes a substitute for real connection, it can quietly become a cage, a beautiful illusion that keeps her emotionally stuck. If you sense that someone's holding back because they're afraid to lose the dream they've built, the most helpful thing you can do isn't to push or pressure, but to create safety. Emotional safety, curiosity, and clarity. That's what makes the fantasy worth risking for. 7. She assumes you already know and aren't interested. Opening. Why she pulls away even when she likes you. Have you ever felt like something was there, a spark, a connection, but then she backed off? No argument, no closure, just distance, and you're left wondering, did I imagine it? Here's a perspective many people overlook. She may have assumed you already knew she liked you, and that your silence was your answer. Let's unpack this hidden loop of miscommunication, how it happens, and why it quietly ends so many unspoken love stories before they even begin. Pushpin the silent conclusion. He must know. Many women are raised in cultures that discourage direct pursuit. Instead, they express interest through subtle cues, body language, tone of voice, social proximity. So when she makes an effort to be around you, gives small compliments, engages more deeply than usual, she may believe she's being clear. And if you don't reciprocate overtly, her mind often interprets that as quiet rejection. In her internal logic, your lack of action becomes an answer. Pushpin the self-protection mechanism. Once she assumes you're not interested, she likely won't seek confirmation. Why? Because asking directly risks embarrassment, and more importantly, it risks her self-esteem. To protect herself, she emotionally withdraws. She stops initiating conversations. She becomes colder, more distant. She tries to move on before it becomes too painful. Ironically, this withdrawal is often misread as disinterest, when in reality, it may be the exact opposite. Pushpin the feedback loop of assumptions. This dynamic creates what psychologists call a self-reinforcing cycle. Here's how it plays out. She subtly shows interest. You don't respond clearly, possibly because you're unsure, respectful, or also afraid. She interprets your silence as disinterest. She pulls away to protect herself. You perceive her withdrawal as a lack of feelings. And so, you don't act either. This feedback loop quietly closes the door on connection, not because feelings weren't there, but because neither side broke the silence. Compass conclusion. Clear signals break the cycle. This is why clarity and emotional safety are so important. If you're unsure whether someone likes you, but there's consistent warmth, attention, or care, it might be worth gently clarifying. Because sometimes, what looks like indifference is really just someone trying to protect their dignity from what they think you've already said with your silence. Part 3. The implications. What this means for you. Studio microphone opening. What should you do if she doesn't say it out loud? You've sensed the signals. Eye contact that lingers a little too long. Subtle changes in tone. Small acts of care that feel intentional. But she hasn't said anything out loud. No confession. No confirmation. Just quiet presence. So, what now? This is where most people hesitate, waiting for verbal validation before taking the next step. But in many cases, waiting for words may mean missing the moment entirely. Let's break this down. Pushpin 1. Stop waiting for verbal confirmation. One of the biggest misconceptions in modern dating is believing that genuine feelings will always be expressed clearly and directly. But for many women, especially those navigating emotional uncertainty, feelings are more often shown through action than speech. She may choose to sit next to you in group settings. She may remember small details you didn't expect. She may laugh a little harder at your jokes than necessary. These are not random behaviors. They're behavioral signals, subtle, intentional, and emotionally charged. If you're waiting for a literal sentence like, "I like you," you might be waiting forever. Not because it's not there, but because saying it out loud comes with risks she's not ready to take yet. Push pin 2. Your first role is to create emotional safety. In emotionally ambiguous moments, your calm, clear energy becomes the bridge. You don't need to make a dramatic move, but you do need to make it emotionally safe for her to lower her guard. Here's how you can do that. Be gently direct. Use warm, low-pressure questions like, "You seem really comfortable around me. I like that." Choose the right setting. Conversations about feelings go further in quiet, private moments, not in group chats or rushed environments. Match vulnerability with vulnerability. When you share something personal or emotionally honest, you signal that it's safe for her to do the same. Your initiative doesn't just open the door, it lets her know it's safe to walk through it. Push pin 3. Silence doesn't mean she's not interested. This might be the most important shift in perspective. Silence is not a rejection. In fact, it might be a sign of deeper, more fragile feelings. Many people withdraw or stay quiet because they've been hurt before and don't want to risk it again. They believe you're out of reach or already disinterested. They're waiting for you to go first, because they're afraid to go alone. In psychology, this is known as protective suppression, the mind's way of shielding vulnerability by hiding it behind stillness. So when you interpret her quietness, don't just listen with your ears. Observe with emotional intelligence. Compass conclusion, small actions, big shifts. The truth is, most meaningful connections don't begin with dramatic gestures, they begin with small, courageous moments of clarity. If you sense interest, trust what you're observing, and if you want to know more, create space for honesty, not pressure, not performance, just presence, because often, all she needs is for someone to gently show that it's safe to feel and safe to speak. Studio microphone opening. When her silence isn't a no, you've probably been there, wondering why someone you feel deeply connected with seems quiet. Not dismissive, not cold, just silent. And that silence can be confusing, sometimes even painful. But here's something most people never realize. Her silence is not necessarily a rejection. More often, it's a shield, a reflection of inner conflict, social conditioning, and emotional self-preservation. So in this final segment, let's unpack what her silence really means, and how you can respond with clarity, compassion, and courage. Push pin 1. Understand what fuels her silence. Silence can be misleading if we don't look deeper. Beneath the surface, there are often three main drivers. Fear of vulnerability. Many women, regardless of how confident they appear, carry a deep-rooted fear of being emotionally exposed. Admitting feelings means risking rejection. And for some, that's more frightening than staying silent. Cultural and social conditioning. From a young age, many women are subtly taught not to appear too eager, too emotional, or too forward. Expressing affection first can feel like breaking an unspoken rule, and many choose safety over sincerity. Protecting emotional equilibrium. When a woman feels emotionally unsteady, unsure of your feelings, your intentions, or her own worth, staying quiet becomes a way to stay in control. Silence allows her to maintain hope without risking loss. Understanding this doesn't just help you interpret her silence, it shifts your entire approach. Pushpin 2. Be the one who builds the bridge. If you feel a connection, if her presence feels emotionally resonant, and if your intuition tells you there's something unspoken, don't wait for her to go first. Initiating does not mean pressure. It means creating a pathway. Offer calm presence instead of interrogation. Use emotionally intelligent language. I feel there's something unspoken between us. Do you feel it too? Create safe settings for honesty, private, unhurried, and without expectation. This isn't about forcing anyone to speak. It's about making it safe to stop hiding. And when one person builds that bridge, it makes it exponentially easier for the other to cross it. Pushpin 3. Your role: facilitate, not force. It's easy to misinterpret action as aggression or inaction as apathy. But there's a vital middle ground: emotional facilitation. Don't try to extract a confession. Don't assume silence equals disinterest. Instead, invite a deeper level of presence, without pressure. The most powerful thing you can do is to let her know. It's okay to feel. It's okay to not know. I'm here, and I'm listening. That simple offering of emotional space is often the very thing she's been silently waiting for. Compass conclusion. Courage is contagious. At the end of the day, silence isn't the enemy, fear is. And when you step into that silence with steady energy, with compassion, and with emotional clarity, you become the one who makes feeling safe again. If you feel something is there, don't walk away from the silence. Walk into it, with open eyes and an open heart. Because sometimes, the bravest thing we can do is help someone else find their voice. If this message spoke to something you felt but couldn't explain, don't let it end here. Like, share, or comment below if you've ever found yourself stuck in silence, yours or someone else's. And if you want to learn more about how ancient wisdom and modern psychology can help you decode human connection, subscribe and turn on notifications. This channel is about more than just answers. It's about awakening your awareness. Right finger, because sometimes all it takes is one person brave enough to go first.